Henry VIII had a lot of mistresses. Some of them are really famous. We know loads about them, like Mary Boleyn, mostly because of what happened later on with her sister Anne Boleyn, and Bessie Blount, but some of them we don't hear so much about. For example, have you heard of Anne Stafford? Well, she almost certainly had an affair with Henry, and I'm going to tell you all about her. And the thing is, unlike Bessie Blount and Mary Boleyn, who both came from prominent Tudor families of the court, Anne Stafford was basically royalty. In fact, she came from a family who considered themselves more royal than the Tudors. Her father had been the Duke of Buckingham. He'd lost his life under an earlier reign, under the reign of Richard III. Her brother was now the Duke of Buckingham, and this family had more Plantagenet blood running through their veins, the old royal line, the old royal dynasty of England, than the Tudors had royal blood in their whole family. In fact, this family, they weren't that impressed with the Tudors overall, really. Her mother was Catherine Woodville, and if that name Woodville sounds reminiscent of something to you, that's because Catherine Woodville was the sister of Elizabeth Woodville, who was, oh yes, that's right, Queen of England. And her uncle, Edward IV, had been the king. I think it's fair to say she was pretty well connected. That also made her a cousin of Elizabeth of York, who was the mother of Henry VIII, who therefore was also a cousin. Yeah, they like to keep it in the family, this lot. And when her father was executed, her mother then went on to marry Jasper Tudor, who was the uncle of Henry VII and then the great uncle of Henry VIII. I mean, it's a very complicated family tree. Now, in 1503, she was married off at the age of 20 to a much older man, the 54-year-old Sir Walter Herbert. But it did bring her a castle, so there is that. He died only 4 years later in 1507, after which she had a period living with her brother, and then she was married off once again to George Hastings in 1509, who was, shall we say, much closer to her age. And it seems they had, I mean, they were blips, I'll tell you about that in a minute, but it seems more or less they had a very, very happy marriage. There are letters that exist between these two, and some people have described these as some of the loveliest, most loving letters that we have from the court nobility of Henry VIII from the whole period. But there were scandals, and one of them included the king himself. You see, in 1510, Henry VIII was